Hello, welcome to another edition of that Millwall podcast. Today's show at the moment, working title, is Mickey Ben and Newbie Dan. So without further ado, we will welcome a regular host or regular guest, regular takeover, regular all-rounder, uh, Benjamin. How you doing, fella? Ben,
All
sorry.
good. All good, mate. How are you? Yeah, I
Not
was
too
going to say,
bad, mate.
Benjamin, I only get when I'm in trouble, so better not call
No,
me that,
that's it,
Mickey.
isn't it?
I'm
That's
not in
it.
trouble yet.
No, no, you're all right. You're all good. You're all good. And Newbie Dan, second time on the show. First time was thrown in at the deep end on a live one. This one obviously is a pre-record, but welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you very much for having me. Very excited to be here, as I am for the end of the season.
No, that's it. That's it. That's it. So, what you got to look forward to today, then, you lucky listeners? We're going to talk about Blackpool. Get the boys' reaction to Blackpool, and then we're going to look at the Championship and League One teams coming up, and then we're going to finish on a preview of Blackpool or Blackburn even at home on Bank Holiday Monday. Loads of talk in between. So, without further ado, we'll catch you straight after this. So then, I'm going to come to you, Dan, first, just to, as you're the newbie, and just introduce you in better, I suppose, and I'll sit backwards because my lights aren't picking me up if I sit forward, and I look all sinister. So, views on the chaotic game that was Blackpool away.
Well, I was very confused when I saw the lineup at first. I was like, "Oh God, this is a backward step." With credit due to Rowett, 'cause I think he did have to change something. I didn't expect to see Leonard on there. I'd seen he was likely to be injured, but I think in a back three, he is a superb player. I think he's a lot better in a three at the back than he is in a two in midfield, especially in that two in midfield with Saville. Watmore's probably his best game for us as well. So fair play to Gary Rowett. It was made a lot of big calls for that game, and on the whole, they came off.
Yeah, I think the official playing style was a 5-2-3-1, wasn't it, Ben? I think. So back three with two wing backs, and then obviously Watmore playing on the left, wasn't he? He's playing on the left, yeah. On the left back, wasn't he? Yeah. Is he left back? He was, wasn't he?
He's playing more. No, Styles was more the left wing back.
Left back.
Watmore was more on the left attacking kind of role.
Yeah. But it worked, and it gave us an entertaining game to a degree, didn't it? So yeah. So your views on that, Ben, and then we'll come on and talk about the game as a whole. But your views on the game?
Yeah, I mean, the formation was an interesting one. I'd said in our preview that I didn't think Rowett would change it. I just thought he would go with tried and tested. I was surprised, probably like Dan, probably like all of us, that the amount of changes that he did make, and certainly with the formation changes and playing personnel where he did. But ultimately, when we're probably looking at it, it's probably our most attacking formation. And given the fact that we had to win the game, our most attacking team within that formation, I should say, it just worked really well. I was super impressed with everyone. I don't think it was a bad play on the pitch. I know it was a bit of a weird game in terms of going in front, pegging us back, etc. But yeah, I mean, we got the job done, didn't we? But yeah, it was nice to see Rat make those ballsy changes, and it certainly paid off. I think the biggest thing, I'm sure we'll come on to it, is a bit of a headache now for Monday.
Yeah, because do you want to play like that at home? That's the hard one.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing that formation again, given how well it worked going forward. We looked as dangerous as we have done in recent weeks. So yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't be against it. I think the key is how we transition in and out of the ball. When we were getting forward, I think certainly when we played against Wigan, Brad has looked isolated at times. We didn't look like that against Blackpool. Fleming was obviously getting forward to support him. Watmore was as well. Shackleton was doing his bit down the wing, and I think Styles was obviously quite naturally attacking. So we always looked like we had a decent amount of bodies in the final third. So having scored 3 goals, I wouldn't change it too much now. I'd probably keep it. We've probably got the luxury that we can change it in game now, and knowing that something else is working. So, yeah, been interesting to see what Rowett does, but personally, I wouldn't change it.
No, and I think Styles fitted into that role really well where he played on Friday, and also isn't that his natural position for when he plays for Hungary, though, isn't it?
Yeah, again, I think we'd spoken with Stephen about that. I wasn't sure where he played for Barnsley, but I think he certainly played in that sort of left wing back position for them, and as you say, for Hungary. So, yeah, I think that is his best position. And again, it's something we'd spoken about in a previous show. We need someone there in that attacking fullback or attacking wing back role down the left. So I certainly think he fits that for next year if we want to keep him. But yeah, I like Styles. Just unfortunately, he's been injured for such a long period.
But he come back in and he looked strong. In fact, Leonard come back in and looked as if he was a man on a mission. You wouldn't have thought he's been out injured for so long, would you?
No, not at all. And again, I think like what Dan said, I think I really like him in that back three. Certainly when we get one of them to push into that midfield role, which we did quite a bit against Blackpool, and he seems to do that sort of hybrid defensive midfield centre-back role really well. But yeah, I mean, Leonard, right? We know what we're going to get with him. Again, just another one who's unfortunate. He's been out for such periods of time throughout the season, and we haven't had him fit for long enough, really. But yeah, I mean, you know what you're getting with Leno. Yeah, I think again we'll probably come on to it later, but I think I know his contract's out in the summer. If I was the club, I'd certainly be making sure he gets another year or two. I suppose depending where we end up, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I agree on that. I mean, Dan, what's your views on some of the players we've mentioned already, or other key players you think were stand out from the Blackpool game? Because to be fair to you, I think the Blackpool game is all a blur now. With all the excitement of not believing that we went there and win, the fact that all the other teams around us fucked up again, and everything was just played for us. It feels so long ago since we played Blackpool, even though really it's only less than 4 days ago.
Yeah, it's all been a whirlwind since that. I mean, my personal man of the match was Watmore. I thought that was the best game he'd had for us in a country by a country mile. Interesting. It was from the start rather than from the subs bench. And what was interesting as well was at times he was playing not just as that kind of left-hand side attacker, he was up top more. And at times we saw Fleming tuck in, so it gave us actually a bit of versatility on the ball. At times it would be kind of a 3-pronged attack. At times it would be 2 with Fleming dropping deep, trying to pick up them pockets of space, which I think that hybrid system complemented us very well. I really, really like Styles. I would have liked to have seen him maybe start when we were playing 4-2-3-1. Would have liked him maybe at left back, to be completely honest. I think that would have given us a lot of attacking intent down that left hand side, to have Styles as your left back and then someone like Bury or Watmore even playing in that 4-2-3-1. So yeah, I do think Gary Rowett has a decision to make. If I was him, I'd probably wouldn't want to change too much, like Ben said. But you know, if you actually look at the options we had on the bench as well at Blackpool, it was a very kind of attack-minded bench. So if things aren't going our way, then we do have the players on that bench that we could chuck on who might be able to come on and get us a goal if we do need a goal.
No, I totally agree. And I mean, the pod posted out, this is either when the team come out, we posted, this is either going to be a masterclass or a master fuck up. And we put our hands up and say, what, pretty much it was a masterclass. He knew what he wanted to do, and the players stuck to the plan, and he done what he done. Even when he brought, what did he bring on? Bennett, Bury, and Burke on, I mean, through the rest of the season, he wouldn't have brought them on to go full out attack. He would have, parked up and gone for the point rather than a win. But he just went for that win, and hopefully, the Blackpool game or the Blackburn game even, he will do the same and go all out attack and just try to overpower him and get that early goal and just keep trying. Plus, it's on Sky, and hopefully the Bradders will score a quick hat trick, and maybe Fleming will get one in too. It'll be great, wouldn't it? Just to absolutely spank Blackburn over Snowgate and everything else, just to get that little bit more revenge.
Yeah, we definitely need to come out the blocks flying like we did against Blackpool. Hopefully it's going to be a proper Millwall crowd in there come Monday. So we need to make it horrible. We need to get behind the players. So the players need to start quickly, give us something to get off our seats about early. Doesn't even necessarily have to be a goal, just needs to be a big tackle or something like that. Get us going early because we'll be there. So as long as the players turn up like they did at Blackpool, there's no reason why we can't do it.
No, I totally agree. I mean, Ben, what's your thoughts on there? I mean, I just hope that the crowd is I hope the crowd is a Millwall crowd and not a tourist sightseeing crowd. I'm not going to go in to the same level as another podcast did. They were talking about it going, they were using terminology what I would never use, calling people nonces and, all of this sort of stuff. I do think that you will get a lot of neutral fans there because it is going to be a make or break game. Like they were talking about noncy camera filming people and all this sort of shit and all that. And you're thinking, you're talking on a podcast, so you're calling these people nonsense, and okay, you might not video, but you talk on a podcast, so you're pretty much calling yourself it. But to me, I that word in the grass gets people proper hurt, and I wouldn't necessarily associate that word with someone who wants to take pictures and put them on YouTube or save them. Unfortunately, it's a younger generation of today. Videoing at football, if you're videoing the playing field as such, I haven't got an issue. That's up to you. If you're videoing people kicking off and shit like that, that gets people prison term. I've got a big problem with you doing that because you're just posting shit like that for likes, and other companies will pick it up and run with it. And that's how, people have gone to prison over time, because you're doing the police's work by providing them with evidence. But if you're just videoing the free kicks and the penalties and goals and shit like that, I ain't got a problem with that. And it's, there's lots of people who support Millwall around the world who crave that information, crave that bit of footage, because watching it on TV doesn't necessarily give you the same vibe as it does if it's filmed in the middle of the crowd and all of a sudden all the limbs are going mad around you. So I understand why people do it. But I do think we need to have a proper Millwall crowd there rather than, 10,000 proper Millwall and maybe 10,000 tourists.
Yeah, definitely. I just going on what Dan said, I think one of the big differences that we've had in recent weeks, Birmingham, we started really slow. Wigan, we started really slowly. Blackpool, obviously, we didn't. I think that's just really, really important for us. I think if we get on the front foot early, or as Dan said, even just a big tackle, get the crowd into it early, it's going to make all the difference. If we go back to the Neil Harris night, and he said he spoke about the Huddersfield atmosphere, if we could replicate it or make it anything like that, I think that's what we need to do, right? We need to make it a horrible day for them. As it stands, we don't need to win the game. So we just we need to make it as horrible as possible. We
need to win it really to make sure that no one else can slip in there, because if we draw it, then and Sunderland wins, then they're above us on goal difference unless we score quite a few. But I think really we need to go out and win.
Yeah, well, yeah, we do, but just in a sense of as long as we make it nasty for them, I don't see them picking up the points. The pressure's all on them, right? And I'm hoping that's the way we're viewing it and the players are viewing it. If the crowd are anything like what it should be, then it's going to be tough for them. But hopefully we get that crowd and not the crowd that we probably had in recent games where it has been a sellout.
Yeah, I mean, the crowd's a funny thing. I mean, people jump on my back and say, yeah, but it's good for the club and all that. Yeah, well, yeah, it's good financially for the club, but is it good for the team? There's a question for you. Are the tourists good for the club and good for the team, or not so good for the club, or not so good for the team, but good for the club?
Well, it's definitely the latter, isn't it? It's definitely the latter, because I think everyone always says on Twitter, you'd always take your 10, 11, 12,000 hardcore over your packed out. Then certainly this season, it's probably been more noticeable. I don't really know why, but certainly in all of our sellouts this year, it's just been different. I think of years gone by, if there was a sellout against Leeds or someone like that in recent years, it used to be really, really intimidating, and it was a really lively atmosphere. We haven't had that at all for a while, I would say. So yeah, as long as it's,
I'd probably say the FA,
it's a
the FA Cup games.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant more like the league games, really. I mean, I can't really remember ones that makes the hair on the back of your neck sort of stand up in a league game atmosphere. I can't remember one at home.
A few, no, not home. A few away games, definitely, but home, I don't think. Probably the first game back after COVID, maybe. But other than that, no. I would say probably the FA Cup or that sort of atmosphere where there was hatred in the crowd. Real venom in the crowd. But
it'd be nice to get that back. But in answer to your question, mate, yeah, I think look, it's obviously great for the club. It gets some money in. Does it help the team? Probably not. We'll see on Monday, I guess.
No, let's see. I mean, what's your views on that then, Dan?
It's interesting that you actually mentioned that you think the best home atmosphere recently in the last few years post-pandemic was that first game back, because I actually missed that game. I had COVID after QPR, and I know quite a few other people that actually went to QPR came down with it, and we all missed it for various reasons. So I was going to say, for me personally, the best atmosphere at a home game I can remember this season, for me, probably would have been the Sheffield United game. I thought that was probably the best atmosphere. That they always come down in decent numbers, and they did. And we was up for it. It wasn't a sellout. It was a decent crowd, but wasn't a sellout. It just felt like a proper Millwall atmosphere. We had a quick start, really got the crowd going, and we got involved at the right times. And we got that late winner. If that was a game we was playing away, that very easily could have gone against us. So, and looking at it from a wider point of view, do I think? Obviously, tourists coming to the club is great. We as you referenced last time I was on, Mickey, we're not really a shirts kind of club. We're not a colours kind of club. The tourists do tend to buy into that a little bit more, which is beneficial for the club. But what the club do also want to be a bit careful of is that if we do end up going back down to League One in a few years, which isn't past us, because we do end up doing kind of 5-6 years one level and then drop or go up, usually between the League One and the Championship. We won't be getting all of a sudden the numbers we'd probably be getting if we was in the Championship. So the club needs to be careful not to alienate the core fan base for tourists.
So that's a good point. I agree with you there, because there are quite a few of the. I mean, you see the chat now on socials after the games where people are going, there weren't an English voice around me. Where I sit in the stadium, East Block, West, wherever, you find that there are more and more now going, I had a bunch of Italians wrapped around me, or a bunch from Holland or a bunch from Germany. We had those Italian ones over at, I can't think when it was now, I can't think what game it was, but they were all, I think they were Italian, standing over on East Stand, jumping up and down, proper European ultra behaviour, very Crystal Palace-esque, jumping up and down and waving scarves around and all that. And I don't think we'd ever go down that route fully, because I don't think we are like that. But I do think that we are not, I don't think sanitised, but diluted is probably a better word for it, because I don't think we'll ever get sanitised fully. But I do think we are slowly getting diluted. And we know that the club are obviously heavily targeting overseas fans. because it's a bigger spend per head, and I can totally understand that. But where do you draw the line? That would be my concern, is where do you draw the line from having too many overseas fans and not enough local fans? But again, I understand that it's probably a lot harder to attract local fans, or new fan base from local fans, than it is probably from overseas fans, because I'd probably suggest that the traditional, or the old style traditional reputation of Millwall probably doesn't necessarily appeal to local fans or local community fans as it probably does to Eastern, or not Eastern, but European fans. So your German, your Dutch, your Italian, your French, that probably appeals more to them. Our old style, working class reputation probably appeals much stronger to them than it does to, a southeast London community. A Dulwich or a Peckham Lovey probably wouldn't appeal to them.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair statement. A lot of them, I don't speak to many of them when they're at games. You hear the voices, but a lot of people, when I go on holiday, and I say, oh, I support Millwall, the first thing when they say Millwall, they go, oh, Green Street or Football Factory. So that's where I think we're known from. And as well, now you look at, I think this season I've seen actually quite a few Union Berlin tops down the Den coming to see, obviously, Andreas Vogelshammer. A few Dutch people as well, obviously, coming to see Zian. So there's a few more benefits as well from recruiting overseas, which is something the club's done a little bit more recently.
Yeah, which is new, because we've never recruited overseas. It's only been over the last year or maybe two that we started to look into Europe. But for a long time, probably since the Russians, they never really looked at overseas players as such. I know you've got Kale and you've got some others, but realistically, they never really scouted in Europe. Which I think potentially we were missing out on. I mean, when we first started doing the pod a couple of years ago, it was something where we spoke about then that we should be looking overseas, because unfortunately the UK market for players is just being outpriced.
Yeah,
if you wanted an English player like Fleming, he would have cost you probably best part of 10 million.
Yeah, I think you see that as well when you see players. Even Fleming's a great example of it. If we was to sell him in the summer, say as if he did, we don't go up, he gets a Premier League move. How much are we looking at just because he's played in England and he's not even English?
No, that's it. Go on, Ben.
No, I was just going to say on a couple of points there that, well, firstly, I think naturally we're going to find that, and Dan kind of touched upon it. Now that we are going to the foreign market, certainly if we get a marquee signing like Fleming, you're naturally just going to get more Dutch players coming down. I don't know what the Germans are doing watching Vogie, to be fair, but a bit different with Zian. And then I think, look, just again what Dan mentioned, that just English players with that kind of English tax over their heads. You look, I think I saw earlier that Middlesbrough want to sign, is it Archer from Aston Villa, but Villa have slapped a £20 million price tag on him. I mean, that's just nuts, isn't it? You got no chance. You can't compete with that. So I think naturally we're probably just going to see more and more foreign imports into the Den, because we're probably going to have to. Because as you said, Mickey, just for the price and how much it's going to cost to get those better technical players in compared to if we're looking at English players. So, yeah, I think it's something we're probably going to need to get used to. If we can pull out another Fleming or two, I think we'll all be happy.
No, that's it. Question for you both, and whoever wants to come in first, come in with it. If you were to pick, obviously we were talking off air, probably one game is pretty much cost us. I would probably suggest Wigan maybe, but I mean, is there a game what comes straight to you, what you think that's the game what cost us? If we'd have won that, we would be in the playoffs right now.
I think it's hard to get away from our recent form, right? Just because naturally it's sticking out, and given the other teams have slipped up at the same time. But I think if you look at one game for me, it would probably be Hull and Birmingham really, purely because when we played them, neither side had anything to play for. Wigan, you could look at and you could always go and argue they had to win their cup final. If they didn't come out like they did, then they would have gone out with a damp squid. But the whole game and the Birmingham game in particular, I just think neither of those sides had anything to play for. We should have gone out there and been really aggressive from the start, and we weren't in either game. So for me, they were ones that I'll look back on and go, we had a real opportunity there at that time when we played those sides that, as I say, neither of them had anything to play for. Probably should have beat them in both games, or definitely should have beat them in both games, given the amount of chances we created, etc. So I think, in our most recent games, I'd say those two.
And I mean, also on there, I mean, what, we're on 68 now. So, I mean, if we'd have put another 6 on there, we could have, we could have definitely been pretty much, towards third. If we'd have got those, and if we'd have got, nice to see Man City beating West Ham. Nice, it's what you like to see. You just need the teams below West Ham to win now as well. But it was in our hands from a long time, and I think we've been very, very lucky. But I mean, what games do you think? You agree with Ben, Dan, or?
I was just actually looking at our fixtures from a little bit further back in the season. The two that have kind of jumped out to me, firstly was the Hull home game where we drew 0-0, and they had a player sent off in about the 35th minute. So we played with added time, best part of an hour against 10 men. We couldn't score a goal. I'd love to be surprised, but as a Millwall fan, it's just kind of what I've come to expect. And again, I'd go back even further to in August, Reading at home for me when we lost 1-0. I think Reading were probably the worst team I've seen down the den this season. They've somehow left with all 3 points. So I think they're probably the two games aside from probably the Huddersfield, Hull and Wigan recently. If I was to look back a bit further than the recent run of form.
I would probably suggest the Swansea game as well. If we have actually scored there, rather than letting them score our 2 goals for the draw, if we could have got a win there, then again, but then again, we're doing here. So, I mean, there's 5 games pretty much. We've mentioned 5 games that if we'd have won, we would have been an automatic playoff.
Yeah.
But then if we'd have won them, we could have been in automatic playoffs. But then again, all the teams around us might have played well, and we wouldn't necessarily be where we are. I think it's in the lap of the gods this year, though. I think we've been very, very lucky.
I think as well, though, if you look at a common denominator between most of them teams on paper, the games that we've just mentioned, the only one I'd possibly exclude is that recent Hull away game, because they still aren't great, but they have got better at home, a lot more under a senior. I think they've actually only conceded 2 in 2 of their last 9 home games. So they're not actually a terrible team at home. Still think we should have got at least something out of that game, though. But what do the rest of the games have in common other than that they were all pretty poor sides, came to us, played a low block, and in Reading's case got a set piece goal, and then the rest of them, just really poor. We always seem to lack ideas, and that was my fear going into Friday's game, that Blackpool were going to kind of try and come out and do that, and then try and get their confidence up and get a goal. But
they looked confused, didn't they? Blackpool looked confused for the first 15, 20 minutes. They looked as if they couldn't understand what formation we were actually playing.
Yeah, we was confused as fans. So they've probably done a lot of prep into the 4-2-3-1. Probably putting 2 of their players on Zian, like most of the teams do. Probably putting both their centre backs on Bradshaw. So they've probably done that, and then all of a sudden you got Watmore springing up into the middle out of nowhere, and then you got Fleming drifting out onto the wide right. And so they did look very confused, really, up until, we kind of do that thing usually where if we start off strong, well, then we usually fade off after about 25 minutes and sort of give our opposition the chance to come back into it.
Which they did. And, it would have been absolute gutting, wouldn't it, if we had gone out on their second goal.
Yeah.
Missed out on the playoff positions on a 40-yard screamer. It would have been an absolute fucking humdinger, that would have been. But, I don't know. I mean, on the championship, gone.
So I mean, I was going to say on both of them really, because I think the penalty was unlucky on Shackleton. I think it was a penalty, but it's soft, right?
I think he
there's
got the ball.
Yeah,
If you watch
look,
a slow motion, he got the ball.
I thought that when I
one of
saw
those
it in real
ones.
time. When I saw it in real time, I thought he got away with it. I saw the replay and I was like, it probably is.
As I say, it's one of those ones. If you're a Millwall fan, we're all going, "Oh, it's soft," but if you're a Blackpool fan, you're screaming for it, and it's probably nailed on, right? So, but yeah, both of them really. I thought it was one of those games that they've scored a penalty and scored a 30-yarder. So another day we'd have won that. Could have won it 3-0. So it was a really good performance, I thought.
No, that's it. And I mean, going into Monday is definitely in our hands. I mean, as long as we win, then it doesn't really matter on other results. But we've got to obviously watch out for Sunderland. If we don't win and we draw, at least draw or win we need. But we've got to really draw a 3-3 all, 4 all, really. Well, it don't really matter drawing those sort of numbers. We're still going to be goal difference down anyway. So Sunderland will beat us if we don't win and draw draw gets us on 69 points and Sunderland win, then they beat us on goal difference. Unless
which will be the ultimate kick in the nuts if we go out on goal difference. And then we really will be looking at one of those games that we just mentioned and going, if we've just picked up a point.
It's true though. I mean, you think some of those where we lost, if we'd have just picked up a point, even a point would have put us into the playoff positions now. Even if 2 of those losses were actually 2 draws, not even a win, we'd be there now. And we'd be having this show moaning about, ticket prices at Wembley, which we'll come on to a bit in a bit. But looking at obviously, I think the Championship to a degree is pretty much there or thereabouts. It's sorted, isn't it? Really, we know how that's going. It's in our own hands, and we don't need to worry about Sunderland or anyone else. Really, it's down to us to perform. But League One. So if we don't go up and we stay in the Championship for another season, we're going to have a trip to Plymouth on the books and a trip to Ipswich on the books, and then it's going to be between Sheffield Wednesday, Barnsley, Bolton, Derby, or potentially Peterborough in replace of one of those 4. Out of those 5 teams I mentioned there, which would you prefer to come up?
It's a tough one, that, Mickey. I think Joe mentioned it again on one of our preview shows. We look at next year and the teams that are coming up. Ipswich are going to probably have a bigger budget than us. Then if one of Sheffield Wednesday, Derby, I'd probably argue, have a bigger budget than us next year if one of those 2 come up. But I mean, if I'm looking at that purely for selfishness and where I am in the world, I'd say Bolton because it's only around the corner for me. So at least I get another local northern game in. They're all going to be decent games to get to next year. Ipswich is always a fun one. Plymouth's always exciting. I like Sheffield Wednesday. I was a little bit, not of a soft spot for them, but they're a big club. I like seeing them sorts of clubs do well. They sell out nearly every week, don't they, at Hillsborough? So if they come back up, I wouldn't begrudge them.
They're getting about 27, 26, 27, 28,000 every week.
It's in 3rd tier. English football's great, right? So, I wouldn't mind them coming up. Barnsley, they're all much of a muchness. We were saying off air, the only one I don't really like is Derby, just because I feel like they've cheated us all those years since they finished above us in the league. So I'm not really asked about them. But yeah, there's going to be some big games next year to look forward to.
At Derby, I remember the Derby radio car getting tipped over. So, that's a memory there. Looking at the Premiership as it stands right now, talking about the Championship potentially for next season, currently in the bottom 3 is Southampton, Nottingham Forest and Everton. Now, they are going to be, again, teams with huge budgets in the Championship. The Championship next season, again, is going to be very, very hard because you've got Norwich still there. You've got some other big clubs still in and around with money. Middlesbrough, Sunderland, and with them. So you're talking some, it's either going to be absolutely crazy again next year, or it's just going to be all over first half of the season.
Yeah, I again, I think we've touched upon it, but this is our best chance. I can't see it being as level as it is next year. As you said, Mickey, the teams that are still in the league, they can't be as bad as they have been this year. I'd look at, you look at it now, Norwich are currently in 12th, Watford in 13th. They're not going to be anywhere near as bad as that next year. As you said, the sides that are going to come down, whoever they are going to have bigger budgets than us and just naturally be better than us anyway, I'd argue, because they're all long-standing Premier League sides. They're not a yo-yo team that are going to be coming down. And then obviously
never gone down, have they?
Exactly. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see because they're in financial fair play trouble as it stands in the Premier League, right? So does it differ when they come down into the EFL? That'd be interesting to find out. But look, I don't think it's going to be as level as it is this year. And I would be surprised next year if we are knocking on the door of the playoffs. That's just my opinion. So hopefully we aren't knocking on the door and we're already up.
I mean, realistically, from West Ham down, realistically, one of the bottom, the bottom four. I think pretty much Southampton's probably a done deal unless they win their next 4 games. And I think they've got some hard games, but hopefully they do, and they can fill the relegation spot with Everton, Leeds, and West Ham. That would be the dream for us. And it'll be the dream for us to go up as they all come down. Because then, even if we come down next season, I think they'll go down again, maybe 1 or 2 of them. But I don't know. Hopefully they do. Everything just keeps sinking. But, yeah, I mean, there's some strong teams there. West Ham, Leicester, Leeds, Nottingham Forest, Everton, Southampton. They're all fairly strong, financial teams. I know people go, well, they are all in a bit of trouble, this, that, and the other. But once they go into the Championship, they haven't got all that, all that pressure from the Prem. They can just start, looking at, most of their players are on 40, 50, 60 grand a week anyway. And with the parachute payments compared to our players, they are going to give the Championship teams a spanking, really. I mean, they're pure class players there, aren't they?
Yeah, I think for you can look at the Premier League and say it's quite clear that the gulf is getting bigger between the big teams and the rest. I mean, look at Chelsea even for if this was 5 games to go in the league, you'd almost probably be saying Chelsea could be in a serious bit of bother if the season has.
I mean, not being funny, but if Chelsea don't win another game, and and Nottingham Forest win their games, there is a chance that that Chelsea could. I mean, I think it's a slim chance, but there is a chance that Chelsea could. And you think about Chelsea, they're 12th in they're 12th in the Premiership, and they spent £600 million in this transfer in this season. That's fucking mental.
They're going to have a huge black hole to fill next season as well, because they're going to have no European football, which will be a lot of money lost for them. And I was reading, it was quite interesting actually. So say as if Lukaku comes back from his loan in the summer and they sell him for 50 million quid, that still goes down as a 50 million pound loss on financial fair play. So the only way they can actually offset that big black hole they've got is by selling academy graduates to actually, because they've paid nothing to bring academy players in. So that's the main way they're going to be able to try and make up that money. And if they want to spend any more, then that's how they're going to have to make up that money. So
they've gone madness there, though, haven't they? They've got rid of everybody, including Groundsman and his son, and Bowley, or whatever his name is. He's just gone in there and got rid of every fucker in the world.
I think he's gone in there and almost tried too hard to try and make a first good impression. I mean, it was always going to be a hard job to follow on from the incredibly high standards that Roman Abramovich had brought to the club. And I think he's gone in and almost tried too hard and gone, I've done this in a different sport. I think I can do it again here. And, it's all gone tits up, really. So, be interesting. But the last time Chelsea had a season where they actually didn't end up getting into the Champions League, where they finished 10th, they went and won the league the next season. So, who knows? I don't think they'll do that again, but
No, it'd be
they'll
wait and see.
certainly do a lot better. But it's interesting that people haven't completely ruled them out of the relegation conversation. Especially if you look at their running as well. I think they've got Bournemouth and Forest, and I think they have to play City again. I think they've got Newcastle. I think they've got United as well still to play.
Yeah, I think they've got United, Newcastle, Man City, and Forest. I think, yeah,
and Bournemouth. I think this weekend.
Yeah,
could be wrong on that one, but yeah, no. So let's see what Agent Allardyce can pull off up at Leeds now.
There's a lot of games to be played, though, isn't there? Because Brighton's still got 3 games in hand.
Yeah, from FA Cup and stuff.
Yeah, and Man City's still got a game in hand, haven't they? Or are they playing that tonight? Is that? No.
This is one of their games in hand, but they'll still have another. I think they'll still have another one, which they play. I think their game in hand against Brighton. So,
I mean, Newcastle's got 2 games in hand as well. So, I mean, the Premiership's open this season as well, though. I mean, you wouldn't have thought the top 4 would have been what's in there now, would you? You wouldn't have thought Arsenal's keep jumping piggyback with Man City, but I don't know. We'll see. So, yeah. Right. Let's go on to Blackburn away. Blackburn at home on Bank Holiday Monday. Ben, we'll start with you. What's your thoughts on Blackburn coming to the Den?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched them in their last couple of games. They've been on, obviously, telly. I mean, the Preston game, they probably should have won. They had a late chance. I think it was Sam Gallagher, had the 1-on-1, and he tried to do the stupid dink. But they haven't won in their last 9 games, albeit they've played a lot of teams in and around the playoffs or in the playoff picture. Look, I think we haven't really got to worry about them too much. It's what Millwall turns up. If the same Millwall that turns up Friday night, then I think we'll win. If the Millwall that turns up anything like the Wigan Millwall, then I think we'll get beat. So it's really over to us. I think, as we've already touched upon, it'll be really interesting to see what Rowett does with the team selection now. I'd certainly be leaning towards keeping it the same formation, the same starting lineup. I don't think you can change a winning side, and a side that was arguably as dominant as we were outside of a penalty and a 30-yard goal. So, yeah, look, it's obviously going to be a tough game, but I do think we'll win Monday. He says.
What's your prediction?
2-1. 2-1.
Going to give us the scorers, or are you just going to give that as a? Do
you know what, mate? I don't care. I don't care who scores. George Long can score 2 if he really wants to. Look, Bradders loves it on TV, doesn't he? So we'll go with Bradders, and I think Watmore might score. He had a couple of decent chances the other night, didn't he? If he starts again, so I'm going to get him to get on the team sheet and finish the season with 2 decent performances, because he certainly needed them, I think.
And so then, Dan, your views on Blackburn at home?
I've said it for the last 2 games. I'm going to say it again. I don't think it'll be a draw, just because, well, for the last 2 games, both teams have needed to win for different reasons. For this game, both teams actually kind of need to win for the same reason. The last thing we want to do is draw, and then it gets taken out of our hands. I will say I do think Sunderland and West Brom do have they do have fairly tough fixtures away at Preston and Swansea. So, but we don't want to be relying on other teams to do favours for us. So I do think one of these teams will win it, and I think it will be a late goal that wins it. So I'd like to go with a 2-1 as well to us, because I want to be confident that we are going to be in them playoffs come the end of the season. So yeah, 2-1.
I'm going to go for a Bradshaw hat-trick. I don't know, something about it is saying that we're just going to go rampant. I just think the players are coming back, and I can see us going rampant, but I think I'm probably being far, far too optimistic. But I could see us, maybe I'll go a bit mental. Maybe I'm going to go 5-1.
Well, to
I'm
be
gonna
fair,
go.
we're
I hope
usually
you're right, mate.
I'm going
there's
to go
usually one
Bradshaw
game.
3, Watmore, and Fleming.
There's usually one game a season where we do kind of, turn over a team. When we turned over Barnsley 4-1 at home last season, we haven't. I mean, we scored 4 away at Preston, but we still made it difficult for ourselves. I wouldn't exactly say we turned them over, so why not?
Yeah, that will be mine. Is 5-1. Yeah, that will be mine. But on other news, to a degree, FA Cup tickets. 100 what they're what about 115 quid, 198 quid upwards, isn't they? 115 quid with all the fees and all that. How much do you honestly believe these playoff tickets are going to cost?
Around that, they won't. I don't think there'll be too much difference, especially if it's let's say it's us and Coventry, two teams that haven't, or us and Luton, that teams that haven't been there for a while. Middlesbrough have not recently been there, but more recently than the other teams that have been in the playoffs. So they're going to want to make every kind of bit of money they can out of that game.
But it's 90 minutes of football. So my question to you is it worth 115 quid? Listen, I understand playoff. Yes, of course it's worth it, as in memories and everything else to us. But a family of 4, that's a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, especially in the living in the way we're living at the minute as well, the world as it is, and that's before you even put anything else into the equation. You shove a couple of train tickets, or if you drive, you've got to put parking on there, and then by the time you get food and drink, you're probably looking at the best part for a family of 4. The kids' tickets might be a bit cheaper, but still, you're probably looking at almost £500 for what is effectively 90 minutes of football. But it's like what you just said, Mickey. Is 90 minutes of football worth that much money? If we're being completely honest, to sit in the normal seats, no, probably not. But would I pay it if we're there? Fucking yeah, I would.
Oh, 100%, 100%. But it's one of those. It's probably an opportunity that we might never get again to get to the Premiership. But I do think that, unfortunately, the FA and people like that do seem to milk the fuck out of football fans recently. They criminalise us for saying us for just for the sake of it, and yet then they fucking rip us off with, £8 a pint and fucking, £6 for a slice of pizza or popcorn, and all the other bollocks what goes with it.
Yeah, I don't know if you actually saw this, but the Arsenal kind of the youths that are trying to be Palace-esque at Arsenal, they actually boycotted the first 30 minutes of their game last night, saying the way the police treat us is unacceptable. We went to collect our tickets, we had to provide photo ID to collect our tickets, and then the police insisted on taking a photo of us like when we collected our tickets, almost like a police mugshot. And they're like, there's been videos circulating on the internet this weekend. There's been videos of West Midlands police striking Birmingham fans, hitting Birmingham fans at their away game at Coventry. So, in a way, I don't necessarily blame them.
I think photo ID will be coming in, and the slippery slope with that. I mean, after Wembley, and again, I've spoken to it before when I was found on the board after Wembley. Excuse me.
Bless you.
After Wembley, part of the conditions what the FA wanted to enforce on us was photo ID, and it didn't get done. And then obviously with Everton again, they were trying to tout that. They made the club spend £250,000 on upgrading their CCTV and all that sort of shit. And it's just absolute fucking madness that they just penalise football fans just for the sake of it. And the problem I have with providing photo ID is if you do something in the ground or you do something what entails you being, you coming to the attention of the stewards or whatever, all clubs within London have an agreement with the police for information sharing, and you're pretty much doing the police's job. So the police don't have to investigate and find where you are. They have a footage of you misbehaving away from the stadium, and all of a sudden attached to your season ticket or attached to your data, because they share the data, share names and addresses and everything else. There's an agreement with that all of a sudden your photo's on there. So all of a sudden there's no investigation work no more. It's just literally, we think it's him. Let's have a look. Yep, that's him. We've got him. As it, and I think that's why a lot of Millwall fans have dummy accounts. It'll be interesting to see now that they're going digital, how many, how much that will increase. Because it's just, I think, there's a show in it with the way that the police, I mean, let's give you an example. If us three now, and I'm not making any assumptions that we are, because, we don't, but for instance, we go out on the town and we get caught with half a gram of cocaine, okay? In a current situation, if it wasn't football related, chances are the police would take that and say, on your way, no further action, it's not worth the paperwork, okay? If you go to football and you get caught with anything half a gram or below, you will be arrested, you will be charged, and you will be prosecuted. And they will basically push it through. Then what they do is then potentially you can get a football banning order, which means passport surrender, everything else. The club will find out. So if you don't get a football banning order, all the clubs have a zero policy around drugs. You'll then get a lifetime ban from the club. So slowly but surely, they're banning people out of going football. There is no other sporting event in the country that you drink within view of the pitch. You go to rugby, you can do it. You drink within view of the pitch of watching it at Millwall. You're banned, and potentially it's a criminal record. You enter the field of play. Technically, those people who go, on Monday and technically enter the field of play, potentially they are liable all to potentially get criminal record. And the FA, the EFL, everyone are going zero tolerance on it all, because obviously there's been some attacks on the pitch and they're going zero tolerance on it all. I don't know how you're going to go zero tolerance on last day celebration, especially when you had chairman and whatnot on at Wrexham. But they're looking, okay, I don't think they're covered by the same rules. But, to me, people who run on the pitch is down to individuals. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. The kids, yes, it's up to you. But for the risk of giving these people a criminal record for celebrating an end of season, which is potentially going to be a wondrous mark if we win, I think it's madness. I really do think it's madness. Different rules for being drunk. How many times have you gone to rugby and seen people absolutely wankered? If you do that at football, the police have all the grounds in the world to nick you. The rules at football are smell of alcohol, unsteady on your feet, which basically could mean your mates tipped a pint of lager down you and you smell of beer, and unfortunately you trip over your feet. If you do that in front of old Bill, potentially they could nick you. Within the rule, within the letter of the law, they could nick you and charge you for being drunk at a football stadium, which is bollocks. Sorry, but it's bollocks. It's absolute fucking bollocks. It's, and you're not going to stop it because the Home Office pays the police, and the police relay on that fee for, budgets and everything else, what they agree to before the season, targeted how many people they're going to fucking try and get. And as soon as you're paying, the police to nick football fans, it's never going to stop. I'm not saying that we are going out there to get nicked, but you understand what I mean. I mean, it's a pet hate of mine. I fucking hate it. No one in authority positions what can actually stand up for football fans do. People like the FSA and the like, they could quite happily cause a lot more noise than what they do. But unfortunately, they don't, because their paymasters are the FA, the EFL, and et cetera, et cetera. So they can only do so much. But yeah, go on, Ben.
Oh, press the wrong button. I was going to say, if the unthinkable does happen and we get there, they're going to have some fun and games, aren't they? Trying to arrange some fixtures on a Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock. But no, we could probably do a whole show on policing and football fans, right?
I've done shows before, mate, and I'm
Exactly.
keen. I'm speaking to a couple of football lawyers, and I'm talking to a guy who used to be chief inspector of West Yorkshire Police and whatnot. Because they have a completely different attitude to how football fans should be treated. You know, if you police by consent and treat people as grown-ups, then you don't necessarily get crowd trouble. And you know, it shows when we come off our ban of Leeds. You know, we didn't cause the trouble. It was the Leeds fans wanting to cause the trouble and letting us roam free was great. There's no issues. But you wait, we get Luton in the playoff. It'll be a fucking 4:30 in the morning kickoff, and you know we'll be shipped in. Yeah, that place will become locked down more than any fucking prison in this country.
Just on that, if we do play Luton, I was chatting to my dad today, and just on the games themselves, actually in the playoffs, I would much rather play Luton in the semi-final. So, I know it's probably not, but if obviously Coventry drop points, we end up finishing 5th. I don't think that will help us. I want to avoid Borough at all costs over 2 legs. Luton, I'm more confident about beating over 2 legs than I am Middlesbrough.
Okay.
I think I'd agree with you on that, Ben. I do think, you know, I think when we play Borough at home earlier, if we're looking at our fixtures against them this season as a representation, I think against Luton at home, you know, it was a bit of a nothing game, you know, but they'd have to come out probably a bit more in the playoffs, you know, and we did create a couple of chances, probably not as, you know, probably should have scored one of either Burke or Vogelsammer's chance in that home game against Luton. Whereas Borough, we was playing them at the time where they'd just binned off Chris Wilder. They hadn't got Michael Carrick in. So I think they were at the start of the season, and you can kind of see it now, they're in a false position. So I think they would probably, although they are on a bit of ropey form at the minute, I think they probably would be the team I'd probably want to avoid the most.
So what, you'd rather Middlesbrough in like the semi and then Luton in the final?
No, I'd rather have Luton over the 2 legs.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you'd rather Middlesbrough at Wembley and Luton home and away?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, if you're watching this, listening to this on a pod, let us know. Get in touch. Tell us who you would rather have first leg. Would it be Luton, or would you rather Middlesbrough like the lads? And I mean, yeah, Luton like the lads, and then Middlesbrough at Wembley. What would you like? And also, I suppose, how much would you spend on a ticket for the final? In fact, how much are you going to spend and try and get a ticket for Blackburn if you haven't got one already? Because there definitely does seem to be quite a bit of activity looking for tickets for that game. So yeah, it's an interesting time ahead. So anyway, gents, before we end, Dan, I'll come to you first. Any last words, fella? It's been quite a chilled show tonight, to be fair.
It has, yeah.
It's been mellow, isn't it?
We're one game away from, you know, being in the history bracket of this football club. For supporters of my age, I was 2 years old when we was at Wembley in 2000 not Wembley, sorry, in the FA Cup semi-final in 2004. So I don't remember that. I wasn't there. I was 2 years old. So sorry, but you know, come on, get behind them. This is a chance for history to be made, and you know, we could all be sitting here telling our kids, grandkids, whatever, about the Millwall team that made history. And as well, one more point as well, what Mickey said about going on the pitch, and you know, people are going to go on. But if you're listening, and if we do get in there, I know it's going to be a very happy occasion, but the pitch is going to be knackered already. Last thing we need is everyone trouncing on it when we're going to have to play at least one more game on it, possibly.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Didn't think of that. Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, just go on, take your pictures, get off, and then obviously the players can come out as well. Then, so yeah, do their walk around. So yeah, just stick to, if you can stick to the edges, that'd be fantastic. Go on, Ben. What you going to say, fella?
Yeah, I think that we've kind of already touched upon it. I just hope we put in a performance on Monday. Take it out of all other possibilities. Go and win the game. Perform like we did on Friday, and just make sure we're in there. And then we'll take our chance. To be fair, I don't care who we play in the playoffs. Let's just get there, give it our best shot, see how we get on. But yeah, in terms of Monday, let's make it a proper Millwall crowd, boisterous, hard for them, intimidating. Just do what we need to do to back the boys. Yeah, and hopefully it's good enough.
No, that's it. That's it. God, Dan.
One more thing as well. I don't know whether he listens or not, but Millwall Spares on Twitter. Hope your phone doesn't blow up in the next few days. And thank you. You've done an outstanding job at getting everyone tickets for majority of the season. So yeah, sorted me out a couple of times. Thank you very much.
Obviously, we can't condone Millwall Spares. And what I would suggest is if you are going on Millwall Spares, this is inside. This is a bit of when I was found on the board and whatnot. Just don't use your real Twitter account, what has your real name associated to it, because technically you're not meant to be letting other people use your tickets. So, you know, just set yourself up a dummy account. That would be my advice to you. Set yourself up a dummy account, and play it that way. Obviously, that's not my personal recommendation. It's what I would do. Let's just put it that way. That's it. That's it from us. If you are listening as a podcast, thank you very much. Make sure you do follow us on your chosen platform. If you are watching on YouTube, hello. Thanks for watching. You've got to the end. And please make sure that you press that subscribe button, which is down there. And make sure you tick that bell, because then when we do live shows or we do, post other episodes, etc., you won't miss out. And give us a follow across socials. We've had a blinding season this season. And yeah, it's not over yet. And Monday is the day. All I'd ask from Millwall players, and I know that some listen to us, is just go out there and play like you want it. And you play like you want it, the fans will make sure that they back you 100%. You show commitment, they show commitment, and together we can make that place an unbelievable atmosphere, and we can make it an unbelievable day. Go on in, Dan. Fucking hell, you're getting as bad as me, mate. One more point.
This one's actually a non-Millwall related point. Bromley have won their playoff eliminator tonight. So for those South London, Kent-based Wool, you never know. Might get 2 Wembley trips this season.
Yeah, and there's loads of ex-Millwall players playing there as well, isn't there? So yeah. I wonder if it'll be cheaper. But hey ho, two trips to Wembley. Maybe we just all go to 2 games. It'll be a laugh, wouldn't it?
We'll take one. We'll take one.
We'll take one, definitely. So yeah, that's it. That's it from us. We will be back later in the week. And if you do want to get in touch with us, it's info@thatmillwallpodcast.co.uk, or send us a DM, and we do read all your comments on YouTube. So yeah, please keep putting the comments in. I'm going to mention the word banana, and if you've watched it toward the end, then please, if you do write a comment after watching the whole video, make sure banana's in there, just so we know you're watching the whole lot. That would be great. So yeah, right. It's a laid back show tonight. I think we've been quite mellow, and I think, to be fair, the reality of the excitement of Blackpool is starting to wear, and the excitement of Monday is starting to build. And for some of us, obviously, they're going to be at the end of season dinner, and hopefully the players will give us a rallying call there, and we can see exactly how they're feeling. So no doubt we do a show over the weekend telling you what's gone on there. And yeah, mate, do you believe